Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Borderless Diaries, the podcast. I'm your host, Simone, and I hope to guide you through some of the journeys that people have in their international journeys abroad. And my very first guest is somebody that is very close to my heart and that I've met in my international journey about 5 years ago, Wim. So, welcome to the very first episode, Wim.
Thank you for having me. Great to see you.
Yes. So, Wim, I'm very curious, as many other people will probably be. How did your international journey start? You're in the United States,
Yes,
but your journey started a long time ago. So, can you elaborate a little bit further? How was your journey? How did it start?
actually, it's been a while. So I'm originally from the Netherlands, like you, right? So I graduated from the Tilburg University in, gosh, 94. And at that point in time, that's the point in time when you take a leap year, right? You want to start traveling. But I also really felt like I want to get a career built, but I do want to travel, but I want to
Mhm.
have a career. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna do travel through my work. So
Okay.
that took about 3 years. So I was consulting and in the Netherlands, and so first close right, and so consulting close to home, and there was a project for that took about 3 years, and then finally after 3 years they sent the whole project team to Brazil. So that was like the first time that okay, now I've now I've really made it,
Yeah.
right? Which is awesome, right? It's the first time that your company pays for your tickets and everything to go over there, and then the whole project team, man, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
So my situation at that point in time was I was actually only going to be there for 6 weeks, just to replace somebody who was going to go. It was a Brazilian consultant. He was going to go on vacation or something, and I was going to replace him. So when the first 6 weeks were over, I was going to come back, and then they just kept asking me back. So I was always for 4 to 6 weeks going back and forth.
Mhm.
And in between, there was another project briefly in Australia. So I went there for 6 weeks. So I was living the dream life, right?
Yeah.
But after a year, the company said, we're really busy in the Netherlands. Can you come back? And I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm ready for that. So, but I've always loved, the Netherlands is my home. But
Yeah.
I have two homes, right? I feel very much at home here in the US as well. So the company that I worked for in the Netherlands had the US branch. The project in Brazil was under the US branch. And they
Mhm.
said, well, you're more than, we can make you an offer. And so they offered me a job. And what
Yeah.
made it easy at that point in time was they offered me a job for 2 years, right? It's a
Yeah.
2 year contract, pretty standard in the US. So it never felt like I'm really leaving the Netherlands permanently. I'm
Yeah.
just going to go on another adventure for 2 years. I did ship everything over, right? So I settled in. They told me to move to Dallas because of the consulting, and they said it's just easier. Dallas is just very central.
Mhm.
And so, but yeah, those 2 years that became so, gosh, I can't even count, but I'm still here,
It's been a
right?
while.
It's been a while. I stopped counting, but it's been great though. It's been because yeah, it was such a, and I was lucky though as well because the team that I worked with in Brazil, they most of them, some were indeed from the Netherlands, but the
Okay.
other part of the team was worked for the same company in the US. So
Okay.
when I came, and I still remember the day when I actually arrived in Dallas. I knew nothing about Dallas, right? I only knew from Dallas the series on TV, and I had people come and pick me up from the airport, so they were friends of mine, and it felt like home right away. Right? It was
Really?
so nice. It was actually most of my friends at that point in time were South African,
Yeah.
so we'd do Dubai over the weekend. It felt like vacation. I think honestly, the work was pretty
Yeah.
stressful, right? Really hard, and a lot of travel and big project. But then in the weekend, she came back to Dallas, nice weather, and you would just meet with your friends and had the pool in the apartment complex where you were living.
Yeah.
It was great, right? It
Yeah.
was really great. So things have changed over time now, right? Married somebody from the US, from Dallas actually. We have a son, so he was born in the Netherlands. Actually, funny enough, because that was one of the best parts.
Yeah.
I'm working here, right, on the US
Mm.
payroll, and they sent me to the Netherlands for 2 years to do a project there, which was super fun. Yeah.
Oh, you went back. And how was that
Yes.
transition then for you? Because I know that your journey started a long time ago. You knew obviously some people, but when was the moment you said it really felt like home right away? Was that because A, you already were familiar with the company and you had some friends that you already made in Brazil? Or how was that transition for you and really settling in Dallas that made you feel right away at home?
Yeah, it's a good. I think it all depends on the people that you meet,
Yeah,
right? I think that's probably the biggest part.
yeah,
That's what makes it home. But
yeah,
I've never what I said, right? The Netherlands is really important to me, right? So
yeah,
I love going home. My whole family is there. And I've been going back very regularly, always at least once a year. And in the beginning, especially, then also twice a year if I could make it. Um, so it always felt like home, even though, so in the beginning, I wrote a blog, right? There was no
yeah,
podcast yet, anything like that, right? So, and I looked, what did I call it? I think USA Newsflash, and I'm written the Dutch way, right?
yeah.
So, but I was looking at US society through Dutch eyes.
Mm.
And so it's just, I mean, they're really funny, and it's kind of fun sometimes still to read that. And then I went back to the Netherlands. Now I'm looking at the Dutch society through American eyes. It's like,
Yeah,
God, what's going on here? Like, so I now, of course, now I'm so used to living here, right?
yeah,
But I think the things I saw then, it's kind of still funny. And but I think living in the US is, I think the people I think many Dutch people have an incorrect impression of Americans, right? They
mm,
feel it's like being superficial, which is not the case at all, right? They're super, super friendly, but they're very sincere in their interest
yeah,
in you,
yeah,
right? And they really want to know. And of course, the fact that you're a foreigner makes you more interesting, right,
yeah,
for them as well. So very warm and welcoming. But I've always felt home here. I've always so, and it's when you fly to the Netherlands, it's great, seeing the green in Amsterdam and
mhm,
you land there. But coming back here is very much like home as well. Yeah.
yeah. Do you feel like that you're still kind of home is the Netherlands and home is in the United States?
No, I think this is really my home because, of course,
Yeah,
this is my house is here and everything.
yeah,
Uh, but it is a little bit of both. But this is really, really home. But it
yeah,
is nice though, right? And we met a few years ago here in Dallas, and it is nice sometimes to have that connection with somebody else who's also Dutch,
yeah.
right? To have that
Oh,
connection and because it is kind of there's a special culture, special
yeah,
sense of humor, and that's nice. I've never really looked for meeting to meet Dutch people in here in the US. There was a
yeah.
Holland America Club in Dallas,
Hmm.
and I was pretty active in the beginning, but at some point I thought I wouldn't be friends with these people in the Netherlands. So
Yeah,
why do I spend my time? That's not important for me, right? To meet other
yeah.
Dutch, but to have some was really nice. To have that connection.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
happy to hear that, Wim, after 5 years of friendship.
I know. Exactly. And then you moved.
Yeah, and then I moved. I'm sorry. But
Yeah, and
I
nobody
recognize
left.
what you're saying with um if you're settling into a place that the friends are super important, the people that you meet are super important, and how that first kind of couple of, I would say even like months or years, if there are people that are super welcoming and like try to settle you in, it really makes a huge difference if you want to stay within a place or if you want to get out of that place, and if you're going to be homesick or not. And on that topic of homesickness or something like that, have you ever felt, especially in the beginning, how am I going to do this? Have you had that experience of being homesick to the Netherlands or certain things that were more challenging for you in that journey?
In general, I honestly have never been homesick except for one time, and it was we had an exchange student from the Netherlands with us for about a year, and she was also from Brabant, where I'm from. And of course, then having an exchange student in your house, you speak English and everything.
Yeah.
But when she left, there was this homesickness too. Then I felt like, okay, there's no Dutch connection in the house anymore.
Yeah.
right? That was when I got homesick a little bit at that point in time.
Hmm.
Um, but that's really the only time. I've never ever really had that. And I would also feel I'm lucky enough that if I really would be homesick, I can go back home, right? I can
Yeah.
go back to the Netherlands to visit, right?
Yeah.
So, because even if I would need to, I could work from there,
Yeah.
right? My job is pretty flexible, which it makes it easy. And
Yeah.
then you're there, you see your family. And I think that's probably the hardest thing, being away from your family and missing some of the events that are happening in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
That you're not part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did those family ties or like friendships that you had back home, how did that change over time, knowing at that certain point in your life that they realized, hey, Wim is gonna stay at least for the upcoming years or maybe
Yeah.
for life in a different country? How did that change those bonds together?
So interesting, because I think initially, I think the bonds only got better, right? Because when you're all there together, you just, you see each other and whatever, right? But I really made it a big effort in the beginning to talk to everybody every week,
Yeah.
right? So I spoke probably to my parents more often than when I was in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really good, though. I mean, again, you miss being there, especially with, I have pretty big family in the Netherlands, so you miss the nephews and nieces growing up, and but again, we've seen them every year, so you do.
Yeah.
There's definitely this strong connection to them, but you miss events, right? Bigger
Yeah.
events, and then that's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I think for them it was. I think my dad said it at some point in time. It's like as soon as I told him that I was going to go to Brazil, they said, "Oh, he's never going to come back."
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't even know that. Always thought I would go back at some
Yeah.
point in time. And I've had times, at some point in time, I'm getting a little closer to retirement. I'm not there yet, but at some point you think, okay, where is a good place to retire, right?
Yeah.
Is the US better or the Netherlands better? I've always had the idea from the Netherlands that it's a really, it's much more social society than here.
Yeah.
I think things have changed there a lot as well, right? So is it better to age there or here? So
Yeah.
we have been at a transition at some point. Now, do we want to go back?
Yeah.
And the key for me at that point in time was, can I convince my son to go to the university in the Netherlands instead of over here,
Yeah.
right? Which would have been much more cost efficient. And
Yeah.
yeah, long story, but in the end, yeah, he really wanted to have the US experience of being in college here. And I do think it was a good decision for
Yeah.
him, very good decision. But at that point, if he would have said, no, I think it'd be kind of cool to have a few years of experience overseas, then we would have left. We would have
Yeah.
gone to the Netherlands. But I've always told him, it's like, we will live on the same side of the ocean where you are,
Yeah.
right? At least, he lives in Colorado now, so we still
Yeah.
don't see each other that often. But
Mhm.
at least it's the same, right? It's a drive or a short flight away.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially, he grew up here and this is
Yeah,
his home and maybe less for him back in the Netherlands. So, when you said when your father knew when you were moving to Brazil that he knew that you're gonna probably not be back to the Netherlands anymore, when was the realization moment for yourself where you were like, I found my place? Was that right when you hit kind of Dallas and you were like, this feels like home, or what? When was that moment for you?
no, I don't think that moment was ever. It was not really one moment,
Okay.
right? It was really over time, and I think I've just been very fortunate with my job, right? My job always made me travel, and I've lived in California for a while, which I really love. I'm jealous of where you are right now. I was there last week, and it was so nice to be back in
Yeah.
California again. And so it's always been very interesting, right? It's never boring. Now, I've always, I've worked here for a company done here locally, because sometimes you're done with the travel a little bit as well,
Yeah.
right? It's just nice to be at home every night.
Yeah.
But there was not one turning point. I thought, this is it, right? And I'm
Yeah.
always open, and thankfully my wife is also open, right? She's always said, if I would want to move to the Netherlands, she's right there with me, right?
That's good.
But I'm not necessarily there, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's I know the option is always there if we wanted
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
which makes it easy. Then you don't have to make that choice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And if we're transitioning a little bit to kind of your career journey and living abroad and making a career abroad, you were fortunate enough, but also worked very hard to have that project in Brazil and then transition to the United States. You've never really had that working experience then in the Netherlands. Do I say that correct?
Not really. I did for 3 years.
Okay.
So, and that was necessary for me because I just was straight out of college, right?
Yeah.
So I had to get the experience, and I was so lucky to be on the project in the Netherlands. It took 3 years. And that whole project was then moved to Brazil.
Yeah.
So that gave me the experience that I needed, right, to move over there. So definitely, I have seen the difference, right?
Yeah.
And I do think, and it's funny because even here, I worked a lot with people in Europe, people in Asia, and I do think, Americans make long hours, right?
Yeah.
It's very similar. It's very different than Europe, right? And I
Yeah.
think Europe has got it right, right? What's happening in the US is not right,
Yeah.
but it's much more clear about the work-life balance. Often
Yeah.
is harder to find here in the US than it is
Yeah.
in Europe. Europe, and I think everywhere else in the world, they have the priorities more straight. You get less vacation days here. Um, but at some point in time, you're a little bit used to it, right? But there was definitely a big difference. Because if I look at my current job, right?
Yeah.
So I work locally, right? I work
Yeah.
3 days in the office, 2 days from home, but then I have no time for lunch, right?
Yeah.
It's back to back, and it used to be the case where, definitely in the Netherlands, I remember that we always would go for lunch downstairs, and now like,
Yeah.
okay, I have a meeting or I have so much to catch up on, right?
Yeah.
Then I need to go. Yeah, I'd rather eat at my desk
Yeah.
to be, yeah, so I can get some work done.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
recognize that when I transitioned in my journey as well. I recognize the moment when I skipped the lunches.
yeah,
And I was like, this is interesting because back in the Netherlands, when it kind of hits 12 o'clock, we all collectively go downstairs, sit at the table, and
exactly.
we eat together. And
Yeah.
even if I explain that to colleagues here, I'm like, it's 12 o'clock, I need to go eat. And they're like, what? And I even have it in my calendar, like 5 o'clock. And I think, there's certain jokes about me in the office where I say, it's 5 o'clock, this girl needs to eat.
Yeah.
And they're like, huh? Why? And I'm like, well, I'm Dutch, I need
Yeah.
to eat. So it's a big, big difference in that regards. What was one of the most challenging parts in navigating that global career? You're working with a lot of different cultures as well. What is one of the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding experiences within your career where people can learn from as well?
Oh, that's a hard question. Because I've always seen it as a privilege to travel,
Yeah.
right? And I think it opens your eyes really to other things that are happening, right? So let's go back to Brazil because it was partly in Sao Paulo, and that's a whole different environment, right? So you have the protective environment in your office and in the hotel, but you also saw the bad areas, right? Where there's so much poverty going on. And I still remember we had a group and we would drive together to the office. At some point in time, I see a Philips television box. I was like, oh, that's cool. Well, there was a kid sleeping in it, right?
Oh,
And then Philips at that point in time had the slogan, Philips, let's make things better. And you see a kid sleeping in that box. It's like, oh, and there's no iPhones at the time, so I couldn't, but it
yeah.
was such a National Geographic type of picture, right?
Yeah.
But how sad it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's work-wise, it's the cultures is just always interesting, I think, and but it's fun to navigate. It's really how how adaptable are you? It's not how others need to
Yeah.
adjust to you. It's really how adaptable,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it a success or not, right?
Yeah.
And then you can, because I had to go to India quite a bit to work with, or to Hong Kong, and every place is very, very different.
Yeah.
But also every place you meet people from different nationalities,
Yeah.
right? Which then makes it's fun, right? So there's definitely a connection that way. But
Yeah.
I think how successful it is or how well it goes
Mhm.
really depends on your own attitude, right?
Yeah.
How to adopt.
Oh, I can 100% agree with you on that. And I think it's a good lesson as well, where you mentioned you need to be the one that needs to be adopting to all of these different types of cultures. And it's really showing how you grow within that environment that is a global setting. What is one of the key things that you think why or yeah, how you created that success for yourself? You have a great career. What is one of the key things or key learnings that you've taken in that global setting? Is that adaptability? Have you needed to learn that, or is that something that maybe comes a little bit more natural? Or what are other key aspects for your career in that journey?
Yeah, the adaptability is a little bit part of my personality. I don't think that's
Yeah,
so much of a problem. It's more a lot of interest in other people, right? And then navigating that whole complexity. I think because of the different, it's not just even different cultures, right? It could even happen within a company. You're dealing with so many different personalities, and
yeah,
you have to figure out how do you work that. And I think the way you treat other people and work hard, of course, you do need to do a good
yeah,
job. But I always told my son when he was trying, when he was growing up, it's like with your career, half of your career is what you know and your skills.
yeah,
The other half is your personality, right? I see very, very gifted people that will not go anywhere
yeah,
because they have a horrible attitude, horrible personality. And so I think that is so important. It's the people skills is probably the number one thing. The rest you can learn, right?
yeah,
But you do need to have that people skill to respect people, work with people, and
yeah,
make it fun. By the end of the
yeah,
day, it's just a job, right? It's
yeah.
just we should not always take ourselves that seriously.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with you on that. I think I even had a conversation yesterday at my work, and we were discussing something, and I said in response as well, we're here 8 hours at least per day, 5 days a week. At least we can do is make fun and like
Yeah.
have fun at work because otherwise we're gonna have a long week ahead of us. So I agree with you on that. How did the leadership style from yourself change over the years navigating such a global career? Because you come from a different country, but also I know the company that you work for is quite a global organization. How did that leadership style change for you, if that changed at all?
Yeah, so it didn't change, right? Well, you have to grow into it, right?
Yeah.
So the leadership is not for me was not something that came naturally. You just kind of have to learn. I think I was really lucky over my career to have some really good leaders, right, to
Yeah.
look up to, and it was always they were just interesting people,
Yeah.
right? So not always, but in general, especially in the beginning
Yeah.
phase, I'm really lucky with and that is so important. So what I think now for myself is with the team that I manage is like I want to be that same leader for them,
Yeah.
right? They don't, but I'm not a micromanager. They don't need to look up to me, but how can I help them to grow
Yeah.
their career? It's never about me. And the thing is, the more it's not about you, the better you do. It's really weird,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
more I've never been focused on my career ever, right? I just had a job to do and used to go and do it. And the rest came automatically.
Okay.
And I
Interesting.
really see that with a lot of people. They always focus on their career. I want to go do this and I go there.
Yeah.
Uh, it just yeah, and partly luck as well. Right? I had the
Yeah.
opportunity. The opportunity needs to be there. I was
Yeah.
at specific positions at the right time, the right place,
Yeah.
and that opened up. And I do think there was one big turning point. This is what my previous company. I worked there for 15 years here in the Dallas area. I had just joined that company and it was pretty stressful. And my manager, she was under a lot of pressure
Yeah.
and she left. She left the company. And I, my first, my gosh, whoever wants to have that job, right? But then they came to me and they said, "Do you want that job?" And my first reaction was like, "No, I don't think so." But I slept on it and I did take that job. And that's
Yeah.
been a turning point in my career.
Okay.
Right. That's really when the leadership came because now you really feel you were not really ready for that.
Yeah.
Right. And I was actually funny enough, I was listening to another podcast yesterday who had the same thing. You shouldn't hire the people that can do the job, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not interesting. You should really hire the people that still have to prove themselves,
Yeah.
right? And they will do, and they can grow into that position.
Yeah.
And they can surprise you as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that because it's also part of like the motivation and that they are willing to prove themselves or maybe go above and beyond to make sure that they're successful in that role instead of perhaps already having all of those skills and experiences. That maybe it's
Right.
also not challenging that person itself as well. And that maybe they are ready for that next step in
Yeah.
growing and learning, etc. So I can
Yeah.
see that. That's good advice as well. And speaking of advice and navigating that career, what is one of the key things that you think is good advice for somebody that's maybe earlier in career and wants to have that global setting, a global career on a professional level? What would be one of the key, or what would be advice that you would give that person?
So the first, I always tell everybody, don't depend on anybody else for your career. You own your career, right? I have a lot in doing performance review. It's like, I want to go to the next level. Well, don't ask me that. So how are you going to do that, right? Because they want a checklist. How do I get there? Like,
Mm-hmm.
make your own career, right? And don't keep staying in your own position
Yeah,
to to grow in to continue to grow. Look for something else. And I
yeah,
even had to have a discussion. This is goes back a long time. Is that if you really want to make a big change, a big leap in your career, you have to switch companies,
yeah,
right? Or because that again, here you're stuck, and it happens sometimes. I see it a lot,
yeah,
right? Some people just will try to continue to keep growing in their current role, and
yeah,
that role will have a limit,
yeah,
right? And then not everybody can make that leap, but then you need to look for another role,
yeah,
and it's really hard and it's not fair often, right? So when a company is hiring, they often hire external and they may have less experience or anything like that, but they get a higher position right away. If you're in the company, it's much harder, right? Because people know you. It's like, well, are they ready for it? Right? They have
yeah,
much more strict criteria. So sometimes if you really want to make a change, right? Don't
yeah,
be afraid to make a change. And that's, I think, how you really make big leaps in your career.
yeah,
And then if you want to be international, that's where you need to look for, right? Look for
yeah.
international companies because they'll have opportunities like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that is very good advice because I do believe that even if, when I look at my own career, I'm quite earlier in career as well. You need to take a leap of faith and just
Yeah.
go for it and make that. And I'm talking to several other people as well and helping them in their careers. Or and one of the key things that I always say is show grit. Just show grit,
Yeah.
show up,
Mhm.
and just take that leap of faith. You never know where it will land you, and there's nothing wrong with taking that step. What is the worst that can happen? Then go back or do
I
something
know.
else and then do
Exactly.
that. And
Yeah.
once you're in that flow and showing that, I think you become more secure as well within yourself. And I think that that will show as well with companies or within yourself to grow and to learn. Um,
Yeah.
how about one of the key advices when navigating on a personal level? What would you say earlier in career? What is one of the key things that you think would be a success for somebody that will make the move internationally on a personal level?
Build your tribe or find your tribe, right? That's it, right? I think if somebody they get homesick a lot or anything like that, it's mostly because they didn't find the people that they want to be with, right?
Yeah,
If you find the people that you want to be with, then you'll be successful. But that doesn't go automatically, right? They're not
yeah,
going to come to you. So you do have to find things, do something local, right? So what I always do whenever I travel, I always go running, right? And I find a
yeah,
local running group and I run with them. I did it in
yeah,
Hong Kong was probably the best. They have a Hong Kong harbor runners. They run every week through the streets of Hong Kong. Insane, right? But
wow,
you make some connections. I mean, those are not my friends or anything. I was only there for a short time, but it
yeah,
gives you that connection. You feel that you're part of something. And I
yeah,
think if you don't have that in a place where you don't have any roots, you'll feel out of place, and all you want to do is leave there,
yeah,
right? And I keep saying it, but it all comes back down to people. So yeah,
yeah.
find your tribe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Wim, thank you so much for that advice. I cannot agree more with you, especially around finding your tribe, So for everybody, we are wrapping up. And if you want to find your community, we do have our community here with the Borderless Diaries community within the podcast, but also at your international journey. Please share your story, share your questions, and connect with each other because, as you heard from Wim, your tribe is very important. And we are here to support you and guide you through as well. So thank you so much, Wim, and talk to everybody hopefully very soon.
Thanks, Simone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.